if you're not doing video in your business today, then you will be left behind. There's no doubt about that. And the excuses that you may have put up in the past around video being too expensive or too hard, too difficult, or doesn't work, they are just excuses.
Welcome to the Simon Says Video Podcast with your host, me, Simon Banks, where we talk about all things video and how this powerful medium can help you grow your business. We focus on how you can get a return on any video content you create. We talk about strategy, production, content, distribution, marketing, how you can get visible, gain new leads, and get new clients. And now, on with the show. So joining me today on Simon Says Video, How to Grow Your Business with Video, is a fellow colleague, Ben Amos. He's a video strategist and also runs a video production agency on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. Now, I've known Ben for a number of years, and recently I've just become accredited video strategist because he has this course where he's helping fellow creators, video producers, and video production agencies actually work on their strategy piece and how we can best serve clients. So Ben, welcome to the podcast. Just for our listeners who don't know who you are, can you just explain a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure, Simon. Absolutely. And thanks for having me on the show. And before we get into it, I just want to say congratulations for you on achieving that accreditation as an accredited video strategist, one of the first accredited video strategists that have come into the world. So it's awesome to have you part of our community here. So a little bit about me, as you mentioned in the introduction there. So I've been running a video production and strategy agency here in Australia for a little over 13 years now. And, over that period of time, we've worked with many businesses, many industries to create all sorts of pieces of video content for online distribution. And I guess that's what kind of led me to discovering, in a way, for me, it felt like discovering this thing called video strategy, because I don't think I'd really understood what it was earlier on in my business. I was just focused on kind of making videos and handing them over to clients. And it wasn't until I realized that some of the videos that we were creating, in fact, many of the videos we were creating, we were handing them over to clients, and they didn't know what to do with them, right? So what did? They just stuck it up on their website or stuck it up on YouTube and hoped that people would stumble across it and do something, take some sort of action with their business. And there was one particular instance that I remember really clearly that kind of kicked off this journey for me. It's around about 8-9 years ago now, and we delivered a video for a particular client. They'd spent about $5,000 on this branding video. We were really proud of the video. They were stoked with what we had delivered. But I checked back like 6 months later on the video because I was just curious as to what had happened, what they'd done with it. And all they'd done is uploaded it to YouTube and stuck it on a corner of their website. And over 6 months, I remember very clearly, it amassed just 34 views. So clearly that video hadn't returned on the investment for them, with just 34 people seeing it, and probably half of those views were their family or their employees, right? So that's kind of where I realized something needed to change, and that kind of kicked off this journey for me into the world of video strategy. And now that's what I do here in our agency, and I'm also fortunate to be able to help many video professionals around the world like you figure this stuff out for their agencies as well.
Now, this is really quite interesting because I find that clients, when they first approach me, they always come with a production first approach. They sort of come to me and say, oh, we want a video. Basically, how much, right? That's the usual question. I'm sure you probably get sort of similar questions. And I sort of personally think that is the wrong approach. When a business wants a video, you shouldn't go, well, want a video, we'll just, how hard can it be? We'll just find someone to make it for us. Now, so what are you saying? So why should businesses think about having a strategy? Because I find, because this is interesting, I find businesses, when you say the word video and strategy, quite often they go, well, we don't need a strategy. We just want a video. But that's, you and I think that's not the right approach. I
mean, absolutely. And you've said it really well there, that businesses are thinking from a production first perspective. They're thinking from a, what I would call a form perspective, which is they're focused on the form of the communication that they want to get out there, which increasingly that's becoming video, because as more and more platforms and more and more video is expected to be used across the internet, businesses are thinking we need to do video. But what they're not thinking is what they want that video to achieve. And that's the strategy first approach, is coming at it first from, what's the purpose here? What's the goal? What is the business objective that we need to impact upon? And is video the right form to do that? If the answer to that is yes, then you go ahead and, work out the strategic approach to making that video work. It's kind of like that old saying of, you don't want to buy a drill, you want the hole in the wall that drill is going to do for you, right? And then if you take that a step further, it's not the hole in the wall that you want. It's, to be able to put that shelf up that the hole is needed for, right? If you take that even a step further and then you go, well, it's not the shelf that we want. What we actually want is to be able to display the pictures from our grandparents, that we have had in the cupboard for years. That's the real reason why they want that drill. So if you think about that through the same lens as video, why do you really want that video? What's it actually going to achieve for your business?
No, I love that analogy. I mean, let's take a little bit step back. I mean, I think, why do businesses need video? I think everyone talks about video in a way, and we talk about how a lot of the social media channels and websites should have video on, need to have video on them. Social media channels are what they call video led. The argument is and discussion is that people prefer to watch something rather than sit and read something. I mean, we know these, but I'm still finding that businesses there's still some reluctance to actually create video content. I mean, why is video so good? Why should businesses actually look at video?
Well, I mean, for all of those reasons that you suggested, and also, as I hinted at before, that increasingly businesses are moving towards video because digital platforms are becoming video first platforms. Every social media platform is a video platform. As internet bandwidth speeds have improved, video is, an expected experience that people are going to get wherever they are online. And we're doing so much of our business online. But what I think the real answer to why video for a business is really the idea of, as we've become more digital in the way that we do business, and we're doing more business online or through digital methods, there's the danger of removing the human element to business, right? And when you think about business, traditionally, it used to be, prior to the internet, it used to be very low tech, so prior to the internet, it was like bricks and mortar stores. You go to your local baker and you get the daily loaf of bread from him, right? So very low tech, but also very high touch. So you would get to know that local baker, and they would know your name, they'd know your favorite order, and that was the sustainable way of doing business. But as we've moved into more high tech ways of doing business, I think we've actually become much more low touch, right? So it's swung the opposite way. But using video and video tools within business actually allows the high touch to come back into high-tech ways of doing business. So it's really about humanizing business, about connecting with the people. And video is one of the most powerful ways to do that, much more than text, much more than just still imagery, much more than, artificial intelligence and chatbots and all of that sort of stuff that we see businesses using today.
In this day and age, we are bombarded with messages. We get so much incoming. And I just think people, because we're short of time, a lot of time, we've got a lot going on. I think people like to receive information as quickly as possible. And I would argue that video is the most effective way of doing that. Video, because I often see businesses sort of put it in the too hard basket. They often find it hard to do video. I mean, from your experience working with clients, so why is that? So how can we make video easier for our clients?
I think, unfortunately, many businesses do lump video in the too hard basket, or in some cases the too expensive basket, or that doesn't work for our industry basket, whatever that basket may be, right? And the fact is that all of these are really just excuses, and some of them are founded in some beliefs that probably come from when video was much more broadcast, high-end broadcast TV commercials prior to the digital tools that we have at our disposal today, which makes video accessible and affordable and easy to create for anyone. In fact, we're doing this video interview using, webcams and things on our computer, which probably every business owner has access to, or they can very, very cheaply, or the smartphone that you probably have in your pocket right now is a high definition or 4K video camera. So the barriers to producing content are gone these days. So the excuses of too expensive or too hard I just think is not relevant. It's an excuse. But what it comes down to is people not taking action because they don't know what to do in order to get the results. And that's where it comes back to strategy, right?
Because let's face it, making video, it's not the easiest to do in reality because there are a lot of moving elements to it, which is why I think a strategy or a planning, if you want to call it another word, is so important. Yes, it's so easy to pick up. I'm holding up my new iPhone 14 Pro, which I've just got recently. It's easy to actually just, open the app and press record. But you're right. The biggest challenge I always think is the before and afterwards. I mean, let's sort of go through. Let's help our clients in a way and our listeners to work out. Okay, yeah, I love the idea of video, and I understand the fact that yes, I can sort of pick up my smartphone or get a member of my team to record a video, but then what? All right. So let's sort of go into, I know you have a process that you go through your clients. Let's go through that, if you don't mind, Ben, in terms of to help our clients with the stages to make sure that any video content they create is actually going to achieve their goals. So where would you start?
Yeah, I think the important thing to recognize is the difference between a strategy, which is your plan, and tactics, which is implementing, like what you actually do with the videos. And, I know a quote that resonates with you as well that I use all the time, Simon. It was by a guy called Sun Tzu, who wrote a book called The Art of War. He was writing about warfare in ancient China, not about modern digital marketing tactics. But basically, this quote super relevant here to kind of lead into the strategic approach to video. And he wrote that strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is a noise before defeat. So if you're just tactically doing stuff with video online, it's just potentially just noise if you haven't got a strategy in place. But then again, if you spend all your time planning a strategy but you don't tactically implement, then it's a slow route to victory. So I think that's a really kind of poignant way of thinking about the importance of the combination of a strategy, which is your plan, but also taking the action and tactically implementing it.
No, I love that quote. That's incredible, considering that was written something thousands of years ago in a way, but it's still relevant today. So let's say yes, we know that businesses, you need to have a strategy when it comes to any content really, but we believe that it should be a video first approach. What's the starting point? Where do I start? Okay,
I'm going to keep this really simple for those business owners listening or watching this interview today, because really, if you start to think and get overwhelmed with producing or designing a video strategy for a business, you can potentially not take action. So if I keep it simple, and I often refer to this as a 7-minute video marketing plan. So because in theory, if you follow this process, you can have on a blank piece of paper, you can have crafted the foundation of a video marketing plan for your business in just 7 minutes by answering these 7 questions that I'm going to share with you. And they're based around, what I think are the 7 elements of an effective video strategy, which, just to give you an outline of those 7 elements, are audience, goals, content, distribution, optimization, metrics, and production. But let me break each one of those down into questions. And if you want to jump in, Simon, between each one, we're welcome to as well. But the first question to ask yourself before you do anything else is, who is your audience, right? So we start with the audience. Who are you trying to reach with this message that's going to make a difference for your business, right? Regardless of the message being video or otherwise, identify who the audience is first, and then the rest of the questions are going to be much easier to answer. If you don't know who you're talking to, if you don't know who you're trying to move to take some sort of action with your business, then your chances are you're not going to talk to them in the right way, or you're just going to miss the point. So get really clear on your audience. And sometimes this is referred to as a target audience or a customer avatar.
I think there, Ben, I think it's really important also, and if I can jump in there, is about It's not trying to create a video for every audience that you have, because let's face it, you might have more than one avatar, you might have one audience. Because so I often have clients come to me and they go, they want, I remember having this discussion a number of times, is like, we want one video, and we want it to, we want it to hit our potential leads, our clients, our customers, and our stakeholders and our staff. And they sort of expect this one, almost like a magic bullet video to do all of it. So I think it's really important to start with who you're trying to reach, identify your audience or audiences, because obviously if it's a business, you probably have multiple audiences. One might be leads, one might be customers, one might be staff. Therefore, and think about the content you can create for each of those audiences. So think videos, big audiences rather than one.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because when you do identify that there are, in many cases, multiple audiences that you will want to talk to, don't try and do that with one video, but instead make that part of a wider video marketing strategy where there are multiple videos. So really, really important to kind of point that out. So thank you for that. So once you've identified your audience, Simon, the second question to ask yourself, or to write down on this blank, well, it's not blank anymore, right? Because we've already answered the first question. To write down on this piece of paper in front of you is, what is the goal? What are we wanting to achieve? So we know who the audience is. What do we want them to actually, do, think, or feel about our business, or about this idea, or this product, or this service? What's the actual goal here? Do we want them just to be aware, to know that it exists, to understand what it does for them? Do we want them to, feel more connected to the business in some way? Do we want them to ask questions, to respond back to us so that we can open up a dialogue with that audience, which leads to sales down the line? Or do we actually want a direct response? Is our goal right now is to get, add to shopping cart, direct response kind of actions and sales? Or, is it just about, bettering the relationship with our existing customers so that they'll come and buy from us again down the line? So identify what those goals are. That's the second question.
And I think those goals can be varied depending on your customer journey and where they are in the customer journey, or even your funnel in terms of sales funnel, because I think different content is needed for, whether it's at the top of the awareness, or to right down to what you call retention or delight, when they become a customer as well. So each video can have and should have a different goal as well. So
once we're clear on the audience, we've identified what the goals are that we're trying to impact upon with our video strategy. The next stage or the next question is asking yourself, okay, so what is the content? What is the actual messages, or what is the content of the videos that we're going to create as part of this strategy? And here we're not getting too focused on production approaches and how we're going to get the videos made. Don't worry about that now. What we're thinking about is, what do we actually want them to understand or to know? What do we want to tell them in these videos? Do we want to tell a story that moves them emotionally? Do we want to give them some facts and figures so that they can make rational decisions? Do we want to educate them about something that they're probably putting into a Google search engine anyway? Or do we want them to actually, take some sort of defined action, and we want to show them how to do that? So when you're clear on what the actual content is, then obviously from there you can start to think about different types of video, whether they be frequently asked questions videos, or story-based videos, or sales videos. I mean, the list is kind of endless, right? But if we're thinking strategically, then the content should be informed from the audience and the goals, those previous two questions that we've already answered.
And I think when it comes down to content as well, it's not to try and put everything into one video either. That sort of make it, depending again on where the video is going, because one video shouldn't fit all platforms. I'm sure we'll come to that in a moment, but it really is if you've got more than a couple of messages, then you think about more than one video.
And that's a nice segue into the next question, because after content, the next thing to consider is, where do I want to put this content, or what is my distribution plan? When we think about distribution for videos, obviously the type of video, so the answer to the content question there should inform where we put these videos. So, there's going to be a different type of video that's going to make sense for use on YouTube. There's going to be a type of video that's going to be better suited to short form content like Instagram stories or TikTok type executions. And there's going to be different types of content which are better suited to only being seen on a product page of a sales section of a website right next to the add to cart button or the make an inquiry button. So when we're thinking about distribution, we're thinking about, how are we going to create that content that's suited to the platform that it's intended to be distributed on. And getting that right can be quite nuanced and can confuse people. That's where the help of an accredited video strategist comes along, of course. But, getting that right is important, and that's what makes or breaks the content when it's distributed on platform.
Just to pick up on that, I just think one piece of video content not necessarily should be the same across all platforms. And I think the tip here really is that you can have the same sort of video and the same messages. You just might need to edit it a little bit differently, and not only just the length of it, but the way it's also formatted as well, and possibly maybe the call to action might be different as well.
Yeah, that's a really important point, that often it doesn't mean creating many different videos to suit all the different platforms, but you do want to customize the video for the platform. So sometimes it's about creating a pillar piece of content for one platform and then thinking about how you can tweak it or change the way it's edited slightly or the format that it's in so that it's native to another platform. Once we've got that distribution element sorted, then the next question to ask yourself is, what can I do to ensure that the right eyeballs are on this content? So the question here is really, how can I optimize this content for the platform that it's on? Optimization can be a bit of a scary thing for people because they think about like search engine optimization and all that kind of, voodoo stuff that SEO people understand and do. But at the end of the day, optimization is really about just how can you set the content up, the videos up on that platform, whatever platform you're distributing on. How can you set them up in order to capture attention of the right audience and then hold that audience's attention long enough so that they get the message and that they watch enough of the video? So rather than focused on algorithm optimization and doing all those kind of fancy pants keyword research things, it's important, it's part of the strategy here, but I would want you to focus more on audience optimization, which is what can I do that's going to make the right audience sit up and pay attention very quickly when this video appears in front of their eyeballs on a particular website or platform or social media thing. So things like titles, thumbnails, the topic of the video, the opening words, like what we call the hook of the video, all of those things are around optimizing for audiences, for the people that you want to pay attention to the video.
And that comes down to basically how you structure the video as well. And again, it will vary a little bit from platform to platform. But the general the tip again really is that you've got to have what we call a hook. You basically, there's that saying you have, between, I guess you hear anything from 3 to 8 seconds, you've got to attract someone's attention. And to be honest with you, it doesn't matter what platform, particularly for social, definitely if someone's scrolling through their feed, but even on your website, you basically need to get to the point. It's just a simple thing like, don't put your logo up the front. These little things like that, that's sort of thinking about the optimization of the video. And this is even before we get to the next stage, which is basically, we haven't even started thinking about filming or making the video yet.
So the importance of, asking these questions and getting clear on the answers to these questions in the order that we're sharing them here, that because one flows on from the other, right? The decisions you make earlier on in these 7 elements impact on how you approach things later in these 7 elements. But before we get to production, which is the 7th element, we need to pay attention to the 6th element, which is metrics. And the question to ask yourself here is, what metrics or what data am I going to measure to determine whether or not this strategy is successful? Okay, what metrics matter is an important question to get clear on, because every video platform, regardless of how you distribute your videos, is going to give you a lot of data, whether that be number of views, whether that be viewer retention, how long people watch for, whether that be click-through rate, whether that be data that's linked through to Google Analytics on your website. It can get overwhelming very quickly. But if you're clear before you've even produced the video, what are we going to pay attention to? What metrics are we going to pay attention to determine whether or not this is successful? And the metrics should be linked back to the goals, right? Remember the goal that we had for the video? It was very clear now that we're taking a strategic approach. The metrics that we measure should be related to the goal we're trying to achieve with that video. It's as simple as that.
And I think this is so often overlooked. With a lot of video content is people don't think about actually how we're going to measure it, how we're going to measure the success, how we're actually going to make sure we get a return of investment. Because I believe that if we can put these metrics in place and you can see the video working or not working, in the case may be, you can make changes, right? But the idea is that if we think about the metrics from the front, which means we can design it, so whether it's going to be on a landing page and whether there's a button to click or there's a call to action or a special URL page so that you know who's watching where. From that, you can determine the success of the video. And if we can prove the fact that if you invest a certain amount of money into video and you get a certain amount back, I do believe that businesses are going to do more video. I think the metrics is often overlooked, and I do have a podcast coming up where we delve a little bit deeper into the data side of it as well. Element number 7, and this is probably what? Production is at the end. Surely you think about production first, right? But no.
Yeah, I mean, so many people, like we said right at the outset here, when they're thinking about doing video for their business, they're thinking about how do we get this video made? Like, do we pay a production company? Do we try and do it ourselves using our smartphone? What are we going to do to get this content produced? And as we've established here, the answers to those questions should be based on the strategic decisions you've made around those previous 6 elements, because all of those decisions that you made should then make the decision about the type of content, or the type of production that should be used for any particular video in your strategy. So there are going to be certain videos which, based on that strategic decision making, are going to need budget. You're going to need to invest higher budget, higher production quality, and you're going to need to probably outsource to a production company. Equally, there are other videos within that strategy which you probably can do yourself internally, or you can use tools at your disposal at a much lower budget, and every kind of shade of things in between. The other elements, as well as just production quality here to consider in this production question, is how long should the video be? That's a question that we get all the time. How long should the video be? Well, if you've got the answers to those strategic questions that we've just asked, then the answer should be clear. There are certain videos that can be highly effective being 15, 20 minutes long if they're, further down the sales funnel and for the goal of converting high ticket products or services. Someone who's about to spend like $5,000 on a particular installation for their home will watch a 20-minute video that helps them really understand the purchase they're going to make, and that will get them across the line. So the question of how long should a video be, which is part of what we're working on here when we're deciding on the production approach, needs to come from the strategic answers that we've covered in the previous 6 questions.
And if you take this approach, it'll make the production much easier. Okay, so because once you've gone through the 6 elements beforehand, you'll know what kind of videos you need to create. And I'm going to use the word videos a lot here because that's what the idea is if you're going through all this process, you'll have a clear, I call it a roadmap on the types of video content you need to create. And duration will vary. And I do have a podcast coming up when we talk about, actually, everyone says shorter is better, but that's not necessarily the case. But you won't know that unless you have some sort of strategy in place where you will know what type of content you need to do. There is an argument that longer content does actually work. And it is true because, Hollywood films are getting longer, in my opinion. They're like 3 hours. So people will watch longer content, but you won't know that unless you have a strategy in place. Absolutely brilliant, Ben. And we've covered that in a very short amount of time. And I think, if you work with someone like Ben or myself or on other accredited video strategists, we have whole programs on this where we actually come into to work with clients on a one-to-one basis and work with them. And, we spend days with them, and to a certain extent, actually going through all, going through all these steps and creating a bespoke strategy for our clients. So if you're interested in that, you can either reach out to me or for Ben, depending where you are in the world. Ben has a great contact list of strategists who can actually go into business and help create a strategy for your business. So we put all the strategy together and we implement it. What kind of results can we expect?
Yes, I mean, that's what it's all about, isn't it, right? That's what we're doing video for. And we made that clear at the beginning, that if we're not clear on what the results are that we want, then we probably can never be clear on the video that we want. And the answer to what sort of results can we expect is obviously very varied, right? Depends on a whole range of factors. I think the important thing to kind of communicate to people is that any marketing activity, whether it be strategic or otherwise, doesn't work in a silo. So it doesn't work in and of itself, right? So video can be a superpower for businesses when done right, with the right strategy behind it. But the reason why I would never guarantee a specific result for a particular video strategy is that there are so many factors that can impact on the success, particularly if you're measuring success based on sales, based on conversion, right? Now, obviously, it's about kind of measuring the success and adapting and refining a strategy to improve those numbers, but making guarantees or expecting certain results is never the way that it can work out. The thing is, with marketing, everything's better when it works together. So when you've got your video marketing on point, when that combines with your website that's perfectly optimized for conversions or optimized for the actions that you want them to take, when your sales team or people or whoever's responsible for the sales has great sales scripts and good customer rapport, and you've got a great product behind it as well, then your business will be thriving. Okay, but video marketing is an important part of that process. Results will come when you've got everything working together. And
that is true. I think video, you can't see it as a standalone. It needs to work within your business strategy and your marketing strategy as well. Because video is not seen alone generally. Normally, especially online, particularly, it's going to be on a social media platform, which you'll have some text on it probably around. It's going to be on your website. You're going to have words around it as well. You're going to distribute it through email. I mean, we haven't even touched into all these sort of more, I guess, the tactical side of it. I mean, maybe I'll have you back on the podcast where we go in a bit more detail, but this is sort of an overview of why strategy is important. But yeah, video has to work with your overall business and marketing and sales strategy as well. And as you said, I love that word. It's a superpower if you implement it in the right way. And there's lots of ways you can implement video as well. I mean, is there any clients you worked with recently, any case studies you can share where they've been successful?
One particular one that jumps out at me is a client that we worked with over a number of years, and she started with us at the very early stages of her property management business. So she was a rental property manager for domestic rentals, and she started her business relatively new. And the first bit of strategic content we created for her was a brand story kind of a video, which is at the top of the marketing funnel for awareness, because the goal was just to get her brand out there, right? So makes sense to be the first piece of content that was created for a new business, to get people to figure out who she is and why she exists. And that video alone, we combined it with a couple of client stories as well, or case study kind of videos, I guess you might call them. But at that stage, that lasted her for the first few years of her business, and really grew her business off the back of that story, because people resonated with her and understood why she was different. And then from there, she came back a couple of years later because her team had grown, her business had grown, and she needed to basically have better content marketing, or better content that she could be continually using through social media and through her email campaigns to stay top of mind and to not be forgotten about by her clients. So we worked with her on a number of, call them video blogs, or, educational videos, a whole series of videos over a couple of years, which, formed part of her content marketing strategy, right? So again, you start to see now as her business developed, her video strategy developed further as well. And everything was working together. And it got to a point where she was too busy with her business to actually make sure that she was maintaining the quality of her onboarding with new tenants and new landlords that she was getting into her business. So, you know, she was taking on so much new business that she realized that this is where I need video now. So we helped her develop a strategy for using video to, you know, improve the onboarding and the conversion process and the sales process to make sure it was seamless. And then it got to a point just last year where her business grew so much it was acquired for multi-millions of dollars. And we actually just finished that whole experience with filming a video which was back to telling her story, which was transitioning to the new owners of the business. So she's retired, or well, probably not retired. She's not old enough for that, but she's grew her business, I believe, and she has said to me, off the back of her video strategy over the course of a number of years. And I know that's not sharing specific like sales numbers, but you can see there that, you know, thinking strategically about video through the journey of a business and finding where it fits in can grow business exponentially. And that's exactly what we saw with that particular property manager.
And I'm sure you've got lots of stories like that. I have on the same, I have a client of mine who went through my video strategy program. And I think the key again is consistent video content, like your client and my client. They were producing consistent video content throughout the whole of the customer journey. And he said to me, and I've actually got this recorded, you know, where he increased his business by 20%. And he puts that down to actually having video content, is because it made his whole sales process much easier, because when people first made the inquiry, he could point them to videos. And when he went to actually see them, he felt that they knew him because they'd watched the videos, and he said it closed the sale so much easier. And so he believes that his business has grown so much that he's too busy. He's so like, I can't take any more work on at the moment. I need to expand my team. And it's, you know, and then that's a different issue in terms of finding the right people. But, you know, the key is really consistency here in terms of having a video first approach. He has a video first approach where he's doing YouTube videos, putting them to the website, and he has the whole process. When he's making an inquiry, he sends them a series of videos about how he works and the whole process. So, you know, video needs to be integrated into your business goals, and you can make videos throughout your whole of your business process as well. But again, it comes down to, if you're consistent with video, and if you measure it, then you will be successful and you will get a return of investment.
Yeah, I mean, great story, and very similar to a number of stories that we've had. So, yeah, I love that. It's a superpower, right? We mentioned it before.
Those people watching or listening are going, that sounds great. So, you know, yeah, we are thinking of doing video. But I think it's really important that, and this is the piece of work I do with my clients, is that we don't jump into production. In fact, it's worth paying a little bit of money up front to start with, just to explore the type, you know, go through a strategy first approach and then work out what kind of production, because then we'll know what you need and then you can put a budget on that. So I think for my tip here for businesses, if you're thinking about, I need to do some video content, I was just going to look for a video agency, I would say, look, you know, and if you've got a decent budget as well, because generally my clients generally have decent budgets here, you know, you don't want to sort of put all that money into production. I would say put some money into basically creating a strategy or a plan at least, and put some money away for some marketing, some distribution as well. But because you'll save money in the long term if you invest a little bit up front, because you get a much clearer picture on the type of content you need to create and also how it's going to actually work for you. So I know, Ben, you've worked with, I don't know, probably hundreds of video agencies and video producers. I mean, if you're a business thinking, right, I need to approach someone, what kind of, I guess, producer or an agency should they be looking for? What kind of questions do you think they should ask?
Well, first of all, I think the easy answer is to look for an accredited video strategist, first of all, like such as Simon and other accredited video strategists that you can find on my website as well. But regardless of that, I think the key thing is to look for a video partner or a video production company who is asking the right questions from the outset. You don't want them to be leading the conversation by focused on production first. Hopefully we've made that clear through this conversation today, that if you're going to a video company and they're just asking questions around, logistics of shoot days and what cameras they might use and how many locations they're going to go to, and that's it for the questioning that they're asking you in that scoping stage, then I think turn around and back out. Because unless you internally are super clear on your strategy, so you've done that work with a video strategy consultant, or you're 100% sure that you've got it sorted, chances are you're going to waste your money with that business. So I won't pull punches on that. But if you can approach a company that's got a strategy first mindset, either an accredited video strategist or someone who's asking the right questions at the start, then it's going to change the perception of what a videographer or video production company should be for your business. They become a video partner towards the success of your business, not just delivering content, getting paid, and moving on. So that's our word of warning.
Totally agree with that. It's the power of questions. I ask a lot of questions, and it's generally about, what results do you want to achieve, who's your audience, and where is this video going? These sort of the questions I start with, even before I talk about how much money and what type of video you need, because they're irrelevant in my case to start with. But those are the key questions. So that is a top tip, is that if you're going to engage with a video partner or video agency, is to work out, what questions do they come back with. I have actually a whole a brief that I give my clients to fill out, basically, and it asks a lot of questions. And quite often, I've sent this brief out, and they've actually paused doing video because they suddenly realised that actually we need to think about this a bit more. And actually, we probably need a bit more budget to do this, because otherwise it's not going to work. And I totally agree with you. If you go to an agency with what I call a videographer or production first approach, we just want a video and we haven't thought about where it's going, then it's not going to work. And if you think, I'm just going to go the cheapest option, that's not necessarily that's not going to work either. But if you have a strategy first approach and engage with an agency who can say, look, let's do this piece of work first, and it should cost you a little bit of money, because if you get that right, then the whole other process will be much easier. So Ben, thank you so much for your time today. Before I leave you, you got any last tips, that you can share with us when it comes to creating a video strategy?
Look, I just want to leave your audience with the idea that video is, and I think you mentioned it before, if you're not doing video in your business today, then you will be left behind. There's no doubt about that. And the excuses that you may have put up in the past around video being too expensive or too hard, too difficult, or doesn't work, they are just excuses. However, I also want to leave you with the fact that video doesn't need to be hugely expensive. When you've got the strategy right, when you invest in strategy first, then the video should return on that investment tenfold over a long period of time in many cases. So video is an investment in your business, not a cost. And if you get it right, I think there's someone who wrote a book called Get Video Right, right, Simon? I think if you get video right and you follow all of the things we've been talking about today, then you will be set up for success with video. So take action, go do it.
So thanks for watching. I hope you found that really useful. If you feel your business needs a video strategy, please reach out to Ben or myself. I will leave the links in the description. This is also an audio podcast, and you can listen to any of your favorite podcasting apps.